Yes, it shakes a lot. Like I said, I feel like it needs a tensioner pulley on the bottom. So I've been aware that the alternator has been bouncing around lately, and I was noticing that the contact pattern on the water pump was not looking all that great. The belt was sitting pretty close to the edge, and now it's actually starting to look like it actually is farther past the edge now. So it keeps inching forward, and it vibrates a lot, and this little corner here always smacks against the hood, and it's really obnoxious. So I was curious why it was doing this, because I don't remember it doing this at the, when I first installed it. I didn't know if maybe the Brown Dog motor mounts and the stroker maybe make it torque around more, or the mounts, put it just slightly different. But I started looking, and I came to the back, and what did I see? I don't know about you, but that looks like a crack, I think, or at the very least the weld's starting to lift up. So, needless to say, I'm not the best stick welder. So now that I have MIG, I could probably fix that quite easily. And man, would I love to mount a compressor in here as well. But I'm going to take this alternator out and see what's going on with that. Man, I tell you what, I've never seen anything like this before. Look at that. It's actually bowed. It's not straight. Got a nice crack there. Got a little crack here. So basically the whole thing was bending forward over the edge. So it was just cracking like that. Alright, so it's all coming back to me now. I saw this washer laying on the ground and I didn't remember what it was at first. And then I remembered that was a bootleg spacer used to fix my bad bracket creation skills. Because now that I think about it, I remember that the alternator, it was angled, and to make up for that angle, I couldn't actually rotate it that direction. So I put a washer here, and you can actually see the outline where it was, so that the front stuck up enough that it was, realigned properly. And not thinking that, basically all the pressure's on that, so it made a nice little leverage and just kind of, bent and cracked and all that hoopla. So I guess that's not the way to do it, huh? Alright, now we know why it failed. So now we gotta fix it. I'm also looking around. As you can tell, it's awfully oily in this area. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. I saw some oil at the spark plug. I'm like, that's weird. So I followed it up. I'm like, okay, well, it's gotta be above that. And I saw a little bit of a crack, and I'm like, oh, that's a little weird. I came over here, and holy fuck. Really? Really? Come on, man! My pretty old valve cover. It's got a big old crack in it. Man. I hate when good Jeeps go bad. Crack's a hell of a drug, man. So, there's a lot of space in here. And something that I've been wanting to do for a while is to get my AC back together. After moving the alternator to the top, I had to get rid of the compressor. And, it's not a problem in the spring, and the fall, and the winter, but man, in the summer does this motherfucker get hot. So, I would love to make a dual bracket to put the compressor down on the bottom and keep the alternator at the top. I'm wondering if I can hook up some funk diggery to get all this hooked up and mounted. The other problem is making sure that the belts can actually be routed in a place that everything will make sense, which I think is possible. So it's just trying to fit in this space. Basically, our space issue has to do with two things. One, the battery tray sticks out over here, and we can lop off the plastic. That's not a big deal. I'm not worried about that at all. The other part is the timing cover over here, which you might be able to get away with shaving down, but it's a little ballsy, and if you fuck that up, you're fucking up a block and a cover. So that is a last resort, and I don't even want to really do that. So, yeah, if we can get the compressor to fit down there nicely and have the alternator sit on top and everyone's all happy, then we'd be good, and that would be awesome. Okay, I've been brainstorming for a little while. So, we got our helping hand over here, just to keep everything up in the air. Something cool I found out, I can actually keep this rotated sideways, have plenty of clearance, so we can hook up our hoses and have easy access to it, which is always nice. You don't have to crawl underneath, and you won't have tight bends and all that stuff. So it's good, 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 and good. Alright, so we got our first cardboard bracket going on. If you'll notice, the bottom is not actually flat with the top, so I have spacers that are measured from what the old one is, so we're just going to make this flat. The old bracket kind of came at an angle, so we had our flat and then our top piece, and it curled up like that to make up for the gap. But we're just going to go flat, keep it simple. So, from what I'm thinking, we're just going to have our compressor on the bottom. We're going to have a plate that sits on top, and the alternator is going to be on top of that. So if you look at it from the back, we're going to have a flat piece. I'm going to do some gusseting to make sure that the whole system isn't being pulled down. If you wanted to take the air compressor out by itself and leave the alternator and bracket in there, you'd have to get this out somehow. Well, if you attach 3 points to the same bracket, how are you going to get it out? I mean, you have to like go this way, but here's the battery and all this other shit. So by making this removable, you can pull the whole thing out through the bottom, hopefully. So I found myself some 1/8 inch steel laying around. Now that's what I made the bracket out of before, so hopefully this will do if I gusset it properly. Got a few cardboard templates cut out, and kind of figure out the way I want it, and then I got them cut out of metal. So we got a clearance in the block, and I got the first hole piloted, so we're going to see how everything lines up. Okay, so we got our first hole drilled. Now you can see that gap I was talking about. So, alright, looks like part 1 is looking pretty good. Now if I can just drill out those top holes and actually get them to line up properly. That always seems to be my downfall. So we can use this socket as a spacer to bolt it down, and it's straight enough that you can kind of get a drill in there and mark them out. So now that those two are marked, we can take this apart and drill them out proper. Okay, well, it took quite a while to get just right, but this is part 1. So this is our backing plate. The only thing I didn't pick up were spacers and boltilli for that. Okay, so I got everything mocked up, kind of, sort of. We got a ginormous jack stand underneath that's kind of just letting the compressor wibble wobble on there. And then I got the alternator sitting on top, and I got the belt pulled tight. So we can see our new belt wrap. So instead of coming off the bottom of the harmonic balancer and straight to what we want to do, that's not going to give us nearly enough wrap. And for a compressor, that needs a lot of wrap. So what we're going to do instead is revert back to the way it used to be, and it's going to go from the harmonic balancer up to the water pump, and then the water pump is going to go down to the compressor, so that way there's more belt wrap on this. Now if you'll notice, now we have an issue. We have to go from the power steering over to the alternator, and we're going to use the old idler pulley, which used to sit right here. So something else that I'm going to have to do is make a spot for that. Now that shouldn't be too difficult. It's going to be hard to make sure it's aligned, but as long as everything's parallel, this should be pretty simple. So that will make that run underneath the thermostat housing, and it'll be good to go. Now the only issue that I'm seeing is down here by the compressor. We have this bolt right there in the middle. Hopefully that isn't an issue. It looks like the higher up the compressor can be, the better. Alright, so first thing, in order to run the pulleys the way that we want to, we're going to have our idler pulley back in the stock location. So I got a leftover idler that's got some bad bearings, but it'll be perfect for making sure everything fits together. So, this comes with a, I don't know what the fuck kind of thing this is, but it's a bushing with a little flat shoulder on it. And what that does is, first, it fits inside the pulley perfectly, and it also gives a seating surface on the outside. You notice it only presses against the inner bearing, not the seal or the outer bit or any of that, because that's the only thing that should be spinning. So we need to make ourselves some kind of area for this to bolt onto, and since we're working on a flat plate, I figure we can just use a tube and weld the tube to the side, tap it and all that, and we'll be good. Now this is a, was this a 5/16 tube, inner diameter. I forget what the outer diameter was, but first off, it's loose in here, and second off, it's not even pressing against the outer bearing at all. So that's kind of an issue. If you could find a 5/16 inner by, I forget how big the outer would be, it'd have to be pretty freaking big, then you'd be solid. But it's hard to find bushings that are small, inner diameter, and thick. So what we do, I got myself a spacer that this bushing will fit into, and everything's pretty. So that'll press against what we need to, and everything should be okay. Okay, so like I said, we're dealing with some metric business over here. Now, if you wanted, you could convert to, you know, standard if you wanted, and just do a 3/8 hole instead of this guy. Now, the bolt that I have is a 10mm by 1.5. So, for a 10 by 1.5 inch tap, which is considered coarse thread for metric, we'll come over to our chart. We want 8.5 millimeters, but that comes out to like 3.4 something. And if you look over here down at the bottom, that comes out to about 11/32. So we would need a 11/32 drill bit for this tap to be happy. And interestingly enough, even though this is a 5/16 inner diameter, it's actually already drilled out to 11/32. So it's not the tightest fit. But that's good for us. So that means that we can just drop our metric tap right in there and have a ball. So let's get tapping. Okay, tappy tap time. A little hard to do one-handed. And a quick tip, if you need some soft jaws, just take yourself some old rubber tube, cut it in half again, and it'll hold on for you. So that way the bearing or the bushing isn't sliding around everywhere. Every now and then, if you feel it getting like it's really tight and like grindy, just back up a little bit, break off those chips, and then keep going. This one we're going to tap all the way through. Okay, so when you're all done, it should be all tapped. I tapped it all the way through, and our bolt goes in there just fine, so that's cool. So we can screw this down all the way, but nothing's holding our pulley in place, and that's not good. So that's what this guy's going to be for. When that's pressed on there, that'll give the pulley something to sit on. Okay, in order to positively retain everything, I drilled some holes, so that way we can weld them up. So now I'm going to push this in, and I'm going to drill through just a little bit. That way there's definitely some bite, and this doesn't twist and move around and all that kind of crap. Okay, so I drilled through a little bit on the inner bushing, and then I also added a nice chamfer so that there's a little more area to weld in there. So, let's go fill some holes. I have no idea if you're going to show up. Oh, fuck it. I ain't the best welder, but getting better. Alright, I don't think that's coming apart anytime soon, so once that cools off, then we can start working on mounting it to the base. Okay, so we're going to take this 3/4 inch spacer and put it in there so that way this plate sits flat. And then once this is all welded together and we're happy with the way this all fits, then we can start welding onto this. Okay, so we got these guys sanded, so they should be ready for some welding. Got some bolts to hold them where they should be, and they're pretty much centered in the hole. So here we are with the cursed flat wire again. It's hard to get it to show up on camera. It's even hard to see in real life sometimes, but I don't know, man. This is the worst part of the job. When you're sitting here using shitty wire and you're fucking around with the machine for half an hour just trying to get the damn thing to go. The only real solution I've found is to just cut the wire where it's straight again, and then, you know, you just have to throw away, you know, 5 feet of fucking wire, however long this is. Actually, it might be like 9 feet, I don't know. Whatever it is, it kind of sucks. You got to throw this wire away. I got like almost half a spool of wasted wire just because it's got a little fucking thing that gets jammed up in here, and I can't really squeeze it flat or anything like that. It's always depressing. Spend the money and get some better wire. Once this spool is done, I'm gonna buy some better stuff, better than Home Cheapo bullshit. Everything's all together. She ain't the prettiest. I had to start and stop a couple times, and that kind of fucked me up. You know, I haven't welded in a while, so I'm very rusty. But I don't think it'll fall off, so that's the important part. Meh. Could be better. Could be worse. Alright, well, I'm happy with that. So that's cool. I think that fits on there rather well. So now the next part is going to be attaching our idler pulley. So we're going to want to find the flattest spot we can that I didn't completely fuck up. And I'm going to have that side sit against our little tab over here. So when we mount this, we just want to make sure that, one, it's aligned, and there's a couple axes we have to worry about. Up and down isn't the most important. It doesn't really matter as long as we give ample room for this hose clamp. And we also have to make sure that there's enough room so that these two belts, when they go, you know, next to each other, that they're not touching. So basically we want to get pretty close to this, and we'll go down just a little. So that's fine. Now hopefully our rotational axis isn't an issue, because I figure as long as everything is flat, that everything should be properly aligned in that direction. So that only leaves us with one axis to really fuck up, and that's going to be the rotational axis this way. We got to make sure that it sits at the same angle as the crankshaft. So yeah, that'll be fun. So you want to get yourself something flat and straight, like a straight edge or a ruler or level or something. So I find that the water pump is easy to go off of. So make sure it sits flat on the edge of the water pump, and then you bring it up to your pulley and make sure that it's all level and aligned and happy. But you kind of get the idea. So you want to make sure that it's sitting on there flat. You check the bottom and the top and see if there's a gap or whatever. So this helps you align it pretty well. And then I just have like a clamp that you would use on wood or something like that, just because it's a little softer. So you can kind of inch this thing around when you need to move it. Okay, so with it all lined up, that's about where it sits. So let's put ourselves on a decent tack weld, and then we'll screw it back in, make sure it hasn't moved, and if everything checks out, then we'll take it off and weld it up proper. So I guess it helps if you can use metal clamps, because plastic ones obviously start to melt when they get hot, and then your things start to move around. We're off a little bit. Looks like the pulley started to fall down a little, so we're going to have to pick it up and bend it. I'm going to have to bend it this way a little bit. Okay, so now we're going to take it off and weld it up proper. I'm going to put a couple more tacks on, just make sure it doesn't wiggle around. What's that? A follower. Dun dun. Alright, well now that that's done, we should be looking alright. So I just checked alignment and it's looking pretty straight. So I'm happy. And if we check our belts, we're not touching the thermostat housing, so that's good. Follows that. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to start working on the feet for the air compressor. So I just made some 1.5 inch squares, and I'm going to cut them, and then I'm going to hold them all together and grind them so they're all the same size, and we'll drill some holes. Okay, they're all cut and put together, sandwiched, and then I drew a line down the middle so I knew where it was, and centered it back here, and then put a drill bit through there just so we could get it centered. Now you notice I got a standoff here, an 1/8 inch, because I don't want it to directly sit against it. I want there to be a little bit of a gap, so it's, you know, you got wiggle room and things like that. So now we're going to take this to our drill press and drill this out. And then once we're drilled, I'm going to bolt it together and grind down all these sides so they're flush and flat and all that good crap. Okay, hole's drilled all the way through. So now we're going to grind it smooth and go from a surface like this to a surface like this. Ooh, fancy. One of these little guys does wonders for just cleaning up a little bit, not taking down a lot of material. And there you go. Shiny, flush, ready to go. Sweet! Okay, to make this a little bit easier, so we have our pieces cut out. I have little bolts holding them against the side of the compressor just to keep it flat. And then I'm going to put a plate across the side for strength and also to hold them both together. So that should make this a little easier. So I'm going to weld this here, and then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So that way, instead of worrying about 4 separate little goofy brackets that need a lot of adjusting, we can worry about 2 little brackets that should be pretty simple to hook up. So I got myself a little thing going on here. So we're going to gently weld this because we don't want to heat anything up too much or warp it. We just want a little bit here, a little bit there, just to hold everything together. Okay, there's the second side done. So now we got 2 brackets to hold everything in place. We should be doing all right. Okay, so I have this thing sitting in here. I've made a slight miscalculation. That angled bracket on this side seems to be sticking out quite a lot because I forgot how close we were to the battery. So what I'm going to do is just rotate that bracket around, and then I'll cut the other side flat, so that way we don't have clearance issues. Alright, I took the battery out so I have some more work room here. So we got our plate lined up for the most part. So I'm using this longer ruler. I don't like going off this pulley because it wiggles too much. So if you're pushing it one way, it could be off by the other. So I'm going to go off the water pump again, since that's what this is going to be running off of anyway. So I welded the first one over here. So it's a good thing that this sticks out because it gives me something, just anything to hit. That way, you know, you can kind of get a feel for what this is. And then we'll take it out and do it. Okay, so this is the bracket so far. Now this side, I actually feel like I did pretty damn good. I was able to get a nice even flow and it just kept going. So now that that's done, what I'm probably going to do is run a bead back here. Okay, so now for the fun part of getting all this to work. So there's a couple things that have to happen here. Now then, first and foremost, we have our ruler set to our water pump because the idler pulley wobbles around and it's not something we can rely on. So first we have to make sure that the pulley is far enough forward. And then, just because I want to make sure that the bracket is level, so we're going to have to tilt it. But one more fun fact is that we also have to have this sit at an angle because the engine is not level. The engine actually sits back a little bit. So we need this to sit at the 5-degree forward mark. You got all that? Oh, we also have to weld this, by the way. I think I'm running out of hands. Okay, we got our first booger weld tack going on. Man, that is a lot of things going on. So, we're damn near perfect on level, so suck that. And we have our 5-degree tilt. So, I'm going to put a tack in the back, and then we'll do some stuff, okay? Okay, so, doing a little quick test here, putting tension on the power steering. Everything seems to be running nice. See? I'm not a complete hack. Look at that, eh? That ain't too bad. There's a little booger over there, but that was the tack. I tried to melt that down a little bit just to make it look nicer. You notice I added a little less weld around here just so that the bolt head fits. I might have to grind it down just a little, but that's a little thinner than the rest of it. But I think that looks pretty damn good. Okay, so now it's the alternator's turn. I cut up the old bracket just to get the feet I wasn't going to reuse that base plate because it was bent, and I didn't feel like making new ones because these ones should do. They're still together pretty well, so I got a little side plate welded on that. Hopefully that's not going to fuck me over. So when mounting this, the only thing we got to think of is a couple things. I think I already got the height down, so this should be sitting lower than it was before. So I think we should be okay on the height issue. We shouldn't be knocking into the hood anymore. The other thing we want to make sure is that we can get the spark plugs out, because it'd be a pain in the ass to have to remove the alternator to do a spark plug job. Okay, so I made the new brackets and I put them on the alternator, and I lined the alternator up, and I put tack welds on, then I took the alternator off, and then I ran some beads. So there we go. Now there's a couple things I want to do now. First off, like I said, I got to cut a notch in here so that I can actually get a socket in there and take that bolt out. Ah, shit. Huh. Yeah, I guess I got to do that before I can take this off. Alright, it was kind of hard to do that. Bit of a tight space. Probably should have cut it off before then, but it held it in place and whatever, so blah blah blah. Now our bolt can come out. And we can get a nice socket in there if we need to. Cool. Okay, so with the bracket out of the car, you can kind of get a better idea of what's going on here. So, from what I'm understanding, with this bolted together, this is acting as a large brace. So this technically can't bend. So our bend point is going to be back here if it could. And then we get this spot, so it's really just this part. So this part would be the part that takes all the bendy action if anything were to bend. I think the compressor actually rests against the engine right here. So technically we have that support, but I want to add some bracing. Now the only thing that really gets in the way are these guys over here. So figure take a piece of triangle like this and just put a brace somewhere in here. That's it, somewhere kind of sort of in the middle of the compressor where the feet are, and it lines up here, and we can still access our bolt. There we go. Tell me that ain't some good looking shit right there. I didn't clean everything off, but I got some really good beads with this. I'm impressed. I actually look like a fucking welder now. Welded on all the sides I could get to. Oh man. I don't think she's falling apart anytime soon. Hot. Okay, so got the bracket in there and everything's looking pretty. I dig it. Everything's sitting in there nice. And it looks beautiful. I had a bit of a time beating that bolt in, so I think when I was welding it might have warped a slight bit, because like I said, the compressor is actually sitting on the engine over here, so if it warped down at all, then it'll make things tighter, but whatever, it still fits, so I don't care. So now we got to figure out how long our belt's going to be, since this is obviously going to be a custom application. So I like taking these 100-foot rolls of tape, and you just run it wherever the hell you need it. Make sure that when you do this, that any tensioners you have are in the loosest position possible, and you know, just run it across the pulleys the way that you need it. So we got our start and our end over here. So when we pull these tight and we check the spot here, we are at 7 foot 5 inches, which comes out to an 89-inch belt. When you go into a parts store, they're going to say, what's your make and model and all that bullshit. Well, that ain't going to apply to you here. So if you have someone that's actually willing to work with you and not just read off a computer, this is how you do it. So here's what you need to know. If it's in metric, it's going to look like this. It'll say 6 pk. 6 is the rib count. I don't know what pk stands for. 2135 is the belt length in millimeters, so it's 2,135 millimeters. Now, if you're in USA like us, you're going to want inches. That's what this is right here. This is 84.0 inches. K6, 6 is the belt ribs. So all we need is an 890 K6 belt, or a 6PK whatever the fuck, 2200 something. So you just give them that number, say I need a 6PK whatever belt, and they'll go into the back and see what they can find. You might not be able to find something exactly what you need, like usually it'll be in halves or something, so maybe like an 89, 89 and a half, 90. It's good to go on like belt manufacturer catalogs and see all the sizes they make and see which one's closest to yours. So, yeah, now the fun part of hunting down a belt and seeing if we can get it to fit. You don't want to be all the way tight, because I've tried doing that before, buying belts that are all the way tight, and I couldn't slip them on for some reason, which was a pain in the ass. So I guess they need to be a little loose. I don't know how much, but add maybe an extra quarter to a half of an inch on there if you can, and then you should be golden. Alright, call up your local parts place and see what they got in stock. It's definitely a lot better to pick this up locally, that way you can return it a lot quicker and easier. So here we have a 890 K6, so it's just the same thing but backwards. And if you notice down at the bottom, same thing with the metric, 6PK 2260, which would be the length in millimeters. So we got our belt, and holy crap, it actually fits. I'm impressed. This is the most nerve-wracking moment, is trying to get that last little bit of the belt to slide on, because I've had so many times where it either doesn't fit or you max out the tensioner, and man does that suck. So then you gotta go all the way back and say, I fucked up, I need a different one. And they all like, come on man. Okay, tensioner's tightened up. I don't think it's completely maxed out yet. And we have les tensions, very good. Well, nothing fell off yet, so that's a good sign. Everybody's in line and looks happy for the most part anyway. Okay, I just removed the bolt entirely. I had to take the fan out to do that. But, this is just for test purposes. Now, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. I need to put more bracing on this little thing over here, because actually just from tightening it, I tweaked it quite a bit, and you can see how much it's off. But just as a proof of concept, I kind of want to start this thing up and see how it does. I've got high hopes. I'm excited. Woo, baby! Hell yeah! She barely shakes at all. Oh my god, look at how steady that is. Okay, I've added some new bracing. So, I got this triangular piece here. And then I have a little bit right here. So, that should take care of two of the things, because you figure if it's bolted to the engine here, it's only a little bit of wiggling left and right. So, when you're tightening it, it's rotating, so hopefully that will keep it from, twisting. That'll hold it in place. And then this one here should keep it from going left and right. So it should be on there pretty solid. Now, there is a lot of room back here, so if you wanted to do triangular gussets on the back, you could do that too. So I've just been playing around with this bracket. This is pretty much the final product. So, I was curious if I could get the compressor to mount straight up like this, because now that I'm thinking about it, you're going to have to service this thing in order to recharge it, and you got to recharge it while the vehicle is running, so you have to actually be able to get to these ports. And another thing is that I'm going to have to convert this from R12 over to a R134A. Now, since this one, these are built into the block, I would just have to buy adapters and screw them on. So I guess if I were to get right angle adapters that come out the back, I might be able to work on this while it's still attached, but I was just curious if I could do this with it sitting straight up. And it's close. If I mounted the alternator up a little higher on that one side, there's a chance. Or if I, scooted the alternator over to the right a little bit. But, I wasn't really thinking about that at the time. Okay, so hopefully this bracket's good and I never have to remove it ever again, because holy fuck, man. Trying to get this compressor in here is a goddamn pain in the ass. It wouldn't be all that bad if it wasn't the fact that that ear had to touch that timing cover. It's so close. Trying to get this thing to wiggle in here just sucks. Oh, and it's heavy and it's awkward and all that other bullshit, man. Holy fuck. It almost makes me want to make a lower level so you can put the compressor in from the top and then put the other bracket on top of it, but whatever. Finally got the fuckers in. Tighten that down, put the alternator on, and put on our brand new belt. Yeah, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know I got a hard on for these Quiet Technology belts. They used to be Goodyear Gatorbacks, and then they got bought out by Continental, so they're called Elite Poly V belts. So this is an 88.9 inch belt. It's a little bit smaller than the other one I had, because that one had a bunch of slack to take up, so hopefully this one is just right. So it's got these fancy little things in here and all kinds of shit, so yeah, put one of them in there, see what that looks like. Holy shit, was that close. The other thing that sucks is that belt length varies from manufacturer to manufacturer. I guess maybe these guys have a tighter clearance or what it is, but you know, just the smallest amount, going from a 89 inch to an 88.9 inch. Alright, so that is 0.1 of an inch, which is, I don't know, stupid fractions. But yeah, I barely got that thing over there. This already has some tension on it and it's fully loosened. So yeah. Alright, but everything looks good. Look at that, that's all pretty. That's fucking sweet. This is all locked down and feels good. So let's tighten everything up and give her a test run. That's nice. Well, I can't complain with that. That thing is solid on there. That thing doesn't vibrate at all compared to the engine. Nice. Little torque test. Oh, fuck yeah. Nice. Alright. Well, that takes care of the bracket. I like that a lot. That's sweet. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you make yourself a completely custom accessory bracket from scratch. Oh, God, that is a lot of fucking work, but the payoff is going to be beautiful when we have air conditioning in this hot fucking weather. I hate it. I fucking hate it. So, cool. I'm a hippie guy. I don't know when I'm going to get around to hooking up the air conditioner because there's some more custom fabric cobbling we got to do. So that'll be in a different episode. So, hope you've enjoyed.